We just had a huge Thanksgiving feast where we all probably ate more than we wanted to eat. So when I was coming up with the menu of what to serve for the CSA cooking program today, one of the things I was thinking about, the theme for me was leftovers. So both of the dishes for the first and second course kind of have that idea in mind. So we're going to be doing a salad. I thought a salad would be pretty appropriate. We're going to use fennel, frisee, radicchio, parsley, dates and walnuts all in the salad. But by all means, if you have any leftover vegetables at home, Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, anything like that, you're more than welcome to use those also. So now we're going to make our vinaigrette. So huge fan of vinaigrettes. I like to use whatever's in the refrigerator or in the pantry to make my vinaigrettes. I usually go with like a 4-to-1 ratio of oil to vinegar. To start, we're going to use Dijon mustard. Dijon mustard for vinaigrettes are like training wheels for vinaigrette. Dijon mustard really helps to bring the emulsification together and emulsify the vinaigrette. So I always like to have a little bit of Dijon mustard in there. This is going to be microplaned garlic. So garlic that we just used a microplaner for brings out a little bit of sweetness from the garlic. So we're going to put that in there. Honey. Honey is going to bring some sweetness to it also. Also going to help to emulsify the vinaigrette. So this is about a tablespoon of each. I don't have the recipe in front of me, but I feel like it's about a tablespoon of each. Sherry vinegar, add that right in. And then this is going to be some thyme that we just lightly chopped. All that's going to go in. So I'm just going to stir this to combine it. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and add in our olive oil. Slow, steady stream. And we're just going to try to bring like a nice velvety mixture here. And you'll see that the olive oil starts to kind of combine and create one texture versus the oil just sitting on top of the vinegar and mustard. So you get to a point where you no longer have to do little by little. You can just go ahead and add in a little bit more than you were originally. Stir that in. We're going to add a touch more, and we're going to taste for seasoning. At this point, we have not added in salt. So we're going to add a little bit of salt to this. So I wanted to make note of this. This is really, in my opinion, the only salt we should be using at home or in the kitchen. Diamond brand kosher salt. We're going to use this for our pasta water also. But this is what we use at Gravitas and at Baker's Daughter. This is what I use at my home. Really good salt. It's a nice base level of salinity. I like it because of the grains. It's not too fine, not too thick. So we're going to add about 2 solid pinches to this. A little bit of cracked black pepper. Stir that. We're going to taste for seasoning. Delicious. It's perfect. I love croutons and salads. I like doing them with different types of bread than just regular like sourdough or baguette. So in this instance, we're going to use a raisin walnut bread, like a cranberry bread. I feel like at this point in the world, pretty much every grocery store has some sort of raisin walnut bread. I like having loaves like that around the house this time of year. You have friends over, make a quick cheese board, charcuterie board. Easy to toast those up and make some crostinis. Also great for breakfast with a little bit of butter and salt. We're going to do this as a crouton, so kept the crust on, just cut them into a little dice. In my pan, olive oil. We're going to bring it up to medium-high heat. We're going to add in our chopped bread, and we're just going to toast this all over. So while that's working, I'm going to move on to the frisee. So frisee is a really interesting lettuce. It's got a little bit of a pepperiness to it, a little bit of a bite to it. I like it because it's also nice and frilly with the leaves. So it comes like this with the stem on it. We're going to remove the stem. This has already been trimmed. Generally, there's a lot of green, looks like a weed going around it. We trimmed all that off. Really, the part that we want to eat is going to be the yellow leaves in the core. So I'm just going to hold it and kind of bring the stem out. Just going to cut that off. We're going to kind of pull it apart a little bit. Other thing you'll notice is we had this soaking in ice water. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about today is A nice little trick or hack at home is if you soak your vegetables in ice water, when it comes time to make the salad's gonna have a nice bite to it. The vegetables become very crispy. So we always encourage doing cold water, ice water for our vegetables for salads. So adding a little bit of butter, just a little bit. We're also gonna add some salt. You gotta season everything. So in my pan, I can see it's starting to get a little golden brown on the outside. That butter's starting to froth up a little bit. At this point, I'm just gonna turn the heat down. We don't wanna burn the butter, we don't wanna burn the bread. We want it to be golden brown, delicious. So these are almost done. I think probably another minute on low heat should be good for it. So I'm gonna get my mixing bowl here, and I'm gonna put the frisee in there, and that's gonna be the basis of the salad. So like I said, we want the really nice, crispy yellow leaves to go in there. So this has been drained of all the water that I was soaking in, the ice water. Okay, so next up we have a little bit of fennel. So this is just fennel that we just did on the mandolin, nice and thin. So we're gonna drain all the water from this, add this in, and I can tell you the vegetables feel like they're nice and crisp, and they have a bite to them, because that's what you wanted. We have radicchio now. This is pretty common in the wintertime. Radicchio, Treviso, Tardivo, all different varieties of the radicchio family. Has a nice black pepper spiciness to it. I also like the bitterness that it comes with it. So I like to pair this with things that are sweet because of that bitterness. That's why we're gonna talk about the apples and the dates for the salad in a little bit. So draining all the water. I mean, in this salad right now, like already with the green and the yellow and the red, it looks like fall, right? This looks like a fall salad. So if you had Brussels sprouts at home that were raw, you could totally shave those and put those in. If you had any pears or any other, even red onions or anything like that, it would be perfect. All right, so croutons are done. That's been turned off. They smell delicious. They look delicious. We're gonna do some apples. So we have a couple different varieties of apples here, and we're just gonna do what I call matchsticks. So kind of a thicker julienne, if you wanna be a technical knife cut. It's kind of a little bit thicker than a julienne. I don't mind apple skins, so we're gonna keep the skins on these. And so all you're gonna do is just take your knife. I don't like that bite, too much skin, so I take that off. Same thing, that guy goes away. And we want to do a variety of these apples. So once you get to this point, you're just going to cut it into sticks. We're going to do a green apple, a Granny Smith apple. And we're going to do matchsticks on these. Two different varieties of apples. We're gonna do one more. So there's gonna be a golden delicious. We're gonna put that in there. Same thing, just a couple slices. I like having a variety of apples just also because each apple has a different level of sweetness, of texture, of crunch, of acid. The Granny Smith apple is gonna have a lot of acid in there. Okay, so all your apples are in there. We're not worried about these apples oxidizing because we're gonna make the salad immediately after putting it all together. So right now we have apples, we have radicchio, we have fennel, and we have frisee. So we're gonna do Italian flat leaf parsley. So we're just gonna pick this from the stems. We're just gonna put these in there whole. Like I said, this is gonna add a lot of herbaceousness to it. Gonna mix that. So I'm mixing this, but we haven't added any dressing to this yet. We wanna make sure that everything's kind of nice and mixed. When we add the dressing to it, we really wanna make sure that we are lightly coating versus just dousing it in the dressing. We wanna really be gentle with it. So a couple more ingredients. Dates. So we took the core out of the dates and we just kind of chopped them roughly. This is gonna be nice and sweet. This is a medjool date. We're gonna put these in there. We have some toasted walnuts that are gonna go in. Walnuts scream fall and winter to me. And then we have a little bit of blue cheese. This is just a Maytag blue cheese we're gonna put in. All right, so all that's been added. We're gonna season with salt and pepper. A little bit more. Pepper. Be generous in your seasoning. Okay, croutons. These are the finished product of the croutons we made earlier. Nice and crispy, crunchy, delicious. We're gonna kind of scatter these around. I like a good crouton to vegetable ratio in my salad. So what we're gonna do with this dressing is we do not want to douse this salad in dressing. We want to coat it, if you will. We want to just gently give a little light coating to it. So the way we do it in the restaurant to achieve that is we have our dressing. Take a spoon. We're gonna dress the outside of the bowl. We never dress directly on the salad, always the outside of the bowl. This allows the dressing to seep on the bottom without weighting down the lettuce. And the other thing we do in restaurants that I think make a big difference when it comes to salad is we mix it with our hands. A lot of times when you use tongs or use a spoon to mix salads, it bruises the lettuce, it bruises the salad, it kind of weights it down. We want to be gentle with it. So we're gonna put our hands in there. And we're just gonna kind of just toss it, just gently toss it. Kind of rotating the bowl. And we want to make sure we keep all this beautiful height to the salad. Everything's nice and crispy. Everything's nice and bright. We don't want to lose that. And I can already see that most of the lettuce in here is already glistening from the sheen from the vinaigrette. It smells great. The sherry vinegar in that vinaigrette is really coming through with the apples. It smells super, super good. So when we do this, we're going to do the same approach where it's a little by little, kind of getting a little handful with your hands and just doing a little bit at a time. And as you're building it, like, see what's already in there. So you already have 1 or 2 croutons. So like, let's fill it in with some more croutons, a little bit more radicchio. I don't think we have enough apples yet, so let's put some more apples in there. What else do we need in there? See more parsley for color, a little bit more croutons. Let's do one more little pile on top to kind of give it a little bit more height to bring it home. Oh, beautiful shaved fennel on top. I mean, it looks great. Finish it with some nice apples. Find a nice walnut to finish it with. There we have it. That is our fall apple salad with frisee, fennel, radicchio, sherry, Dijon, vinaigrette, blue cheese. Looks delicious, just like fall. We sell dry tagliatelle pasta. We're gonna use this for our pasta. A couple things also, we're gonna use duck confit. So we sell confit duck legs at Baker's Daughter that we make ourselves. Confit means, is a fancy French word for cooked in its own fat. So we put a light cure on the duck leg, and then we let it sit for a day. The cure is going to help to bring out all the additional moisture in the skin and in the fat, while also seasoning the inside of the meat. From there, we cook this in duck fat for about 2 hours, letting it nice and soft to the point where we can then pick it off the bone, and that's what you have here. You have a nice shredded duck confit. It's going to be sweet, salty. It's going to have a little bit of that kind of irony type richness from the duck. So that's going to be the basis of the pasta. We're adding in some other fall flavors such as mustard greens, butternut squash. Baker's Daughter also does an herb compound butter. I'm a big fan of these little kind of what I call flavor enhancers to have in your kitchen and to have at home to try to elevate the cooking. So we're going to use this at the end to pack a lot of flavor into the pasta. So pasta water is working. We're gonna go ahead and drop in, actually let's get the pasta going, the sauce going, and then we're gonna go ahead and move on to cooking the pasta. So got my pan, I have all my mise en place, everything is in its place, if you will. A little grapeseed oil. If you have olive oil, canola oil, feel free to use that. We're gonna bring that up to a medium-high heat, and we're gonna start with our garlic and our onions, and we're gonna lightly sweat that out. We also are gonna add to this dish Calabrian chili paste. Mackenzie, can you grab a jar of the chili paste so we can show the people at home? We sell this at Baker's Daughter as a condiment. This is just chilies that we mince up and they pack them in chili oil. Same thing, really great way to add flavor to a dish without much effort on your part other than opening a jar. Adding this to a vinaigrette, adding this to like a stew or a braise at the beginning or the end is a really great way of getting additional flavor into our cooking. So big fan of that. So we have our heat, I can feel it. So we're adding our onions. These are just julienned onions. And we just want to kind of lightly sweat them. We're also going to put our garlic in at the same time. I know the recipe says add the garlic first. It's fine. It's all going to be good. It's going to be okay. We're going to kind of toast this a little bit. We want that garlic to get fragrant. We want the onions to get a little soft. You know, a big part of cooking is knowing how to control the heat of the pan and also using your senses to identify what's happening. So obviously, if it smells like it's burning, it's probably burning. So things like that happen, remove from the heat, add a couple drops of water to the pan. Those are just little tips that kind of make it easier for you to cook at home. So we're sweating down the onions, not doing much other than just tossing them around. Garlic's becoming fragrant. Once this starts to get a little soft, we're going to then add in our butternut squash because that is going to take a little bit of time to cook. So I can see my garlic's getting nice and golden brown. I'm going to add in my butternut squash. We're just going to kind of toss this. So like I mentioned, cooking is not an exact science. So you can see it's starting to burn a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just add a couple of drops of water. And that's just going to add moisture to the pan and prevent any burning from happening. I'm also then going to turn the heat down a little bit. So at this point, we're going to add in our pasta to the pasta water. I've got this spider, kind of loosen it up. We're gonna bring that up to a boil. That's gonna take about 6 minutes to be fully cooked. We're also gonna use that pasta water later to make the sauce and to kind of bring the whole pasta together. All right, so notice that the recipe for this doesn't have any herbs in it. The herbs are gonna be added at the end with our Baker's Daughter garlic herb compound butter. So at this point, we're gonna add in the duck. Beautiful shredded duck confit. We don't want to add too much because this duck is going to absorb a lot of the cooking liquid, and we don't want it to be too soggy of a pasta. You want it to be nice and bouncy. So at this point, you can see the pan starting to get dry. Pan's starting to kind of have a little sticking going on, which is fine. We want that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to pull that flavor off. So we're going to pull all this flavor that's developing on the bottom of this pan. And we're going to deglaze it now with white wine. So anytime I deglaze, I like to turn the heat up a little bit higher just to develop a little bit more heat. The more heat, the more caramelization, the better the deglaze. So that's what we want to hear. We're just gonna shake the pan a little bit, make sure that all of that flavor that's been built on the bottom is now coming up. The white wine is gonna be kind of the backbone of this sauce. It's gonna make the foundation. Everything's getting pulled up, smells great. I also love how the butternut squash, as it cooks, the brightness and the orange color really comes out. Really looking really nice. So far we have lightly sauteed onions, toasted garlic. We have in there duck confit. We have butternut squash. What's left to be added is we're going to do mustard greens. Mustard greens have a nice pepperiness to them, a little heartiness to them. I feel like in CSA boxes, a lot of times you get things that you're not quite sure of how to use them. Mustard greens are sometimes that very item. Turnip tops would be the same. So we're just going to kind of lightly mix this in to coat it. Smells great. Smells super, super good. So at this point, we're then gonna add in some of our Calabrian chilies. Depending on how hot you want them, add more, add less, up to you. We're gonna season here. We haven't seasoned at this point. Remember, the duck confit is gonna be slightly salty, so just keep that in mind. So we'll do one seasoning here. We'll taste at the end and re-season. Some black pepper. Smells great. The chilies are opening up. The sweetness from the squash and from the onions combining with the chilies are gonna be super, super delicious. That's already smelling awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in just a touch of pasta water. Pasta water, I really like using in pastas. A couple of reasons. As the pasta cooks, the starch is released into the water from the pasta. So that starchy water is really gonna help to bind the sauce to the noodles when we go to toss it. That's one reason. Also, we talked about seasoning the pasta water aggressively. That's gonna be a salty water. So you're adding flavor to the pasta versus just regular plain old water. So we're letting that simmer. We're just gonna kind of do like a little gentle spoon test. It looks like the squash is pretty much almost all the way cooked. We're gonna check our pasta now, turn this down to low. Let's taste here, see how we've done so far. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm liking that. So in the restaurant, when we test pasta, we take a noodle and we throw it against the wall. And if it sticks, it's ready. That's actually a lie, we don't do that at all, that's a joke. That's at the restaurant, we touch, we feel, we taste. That's how we know if the pasta's ready. So I touched, I felt, I didn't taste, but I touched and felt. I think this pasta's ready. So we're gonna take our pasta, we're gonna take our pasta sauce, we're gonna drain it. We're gonna keep some of the water there because we wanna have a little bit to make a little bit more sauce. Okay, we're now gonna bring our heat back up a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit more pasta water. Doesn't take much. We just wanna kinda open up the sauce a little bit. I'm not a big fan of tongs with pastas, but to each their own. To each their own. We're just gonna kinda gently mix this, coat this. Baker's Daughter, herb compound butter, garlic, parsley chives, thyme, lemon zest, all in there. We're gonna add a pretty generous nug, if you will, to this. We're gonna put it right in. And this is going to emulsify with the pasta sauce and the pasta water to create a pan sauce. We're gonna taste this for seasoning once again before we serve it. You can see the butter's in there, tossing around. Add a couple more drops of pasta water. All right, and we're about to serve it, plate it, taste it. It's gonna be delicious. Smells good. All right, so we're gonna get our pasta bowl here. We're gonna top this with some Fortisardo pecorino cheese. It's an aged pecorino. I'm gonna taste for seasoning. Like I said, this could be done with any leftover. So you have leftover turkey, you have leftover chicken, any leftovers. All right, super close. Just wanna coat the pasta a little bit more with the butter. And then we are ready to plate it up. And then after this, we're gonna go into a little dessert from Pastry Chef Asia. All right, pasta's ready. If you have tongs, you can use tongs. I'm just gonna kinda do it with my tweezers and kind of mound it up a little bit. Same thing we talked about with the salad. We're building a foundation, and then we're going to go back and we're going to fill in where we need to, depending on what ingredients we need to put in there. So we're going to put a little bit of the vegetable mixture, the duck mixture in there now. You can see that the herb compound butter brought out some herbs in there. You have the mustard greens in there. Topping it with the butter and squash. Looks so good. Got some onions in there. Oh yeah. Okay. So now we're gonna top it with our Fortisardo pecorino. We're gonna get our microplane, and we're gonna make it rain. This has a really nice saltiness to it. Smells great. We're gonna top this with a little bit of Agrumato lemon olive oil. It helps to brighten up the pasta a little bit. And then to finish, just a little bit of cracked black pepper. There we have it. A very fall appropriate, winter appropriate pasta of duck confit, butter and squash, mustard greens, pecorino, Calabrian chilies. We're getting to the dessert portion of it, so excited to announce our newest pastry chef, Chef Asia.
Hi.
Has a wonderful spiced apple cake we're going to be doing, very fall appropriate, topped with a apple compote. And so Chef Asia is responsible for both Gravitas pastries, but then also Baker's Daughter, all the pastries that we offer here. And she has a lot of really cool holiday desserts coming up, special cookies, some special ice creams we're going to be doing to go at Gravitas, some Yule logs. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So without further ado, Chef Asia can take it away and do a little dessert action.
Hi, everybody. Not sure where to look because there's a lot of cameras right now, but it's nice to meet everybody, and I hope to be doing a bunch more of these with you. So for this spiced apple cake, it's a really great dessert for this time of year. It's sort of comforting. You know, it's got like those sort of apple pie flavors to it, but it's a little bit more like you could get away with serving it for breakfast, or you could have it for dessert. So it's kind of a win-win. We're gonna start with peeling and cutting our apples. If you look at the recipe, it says that we need dice and slices. So we're actually we're gonna peel them all, and then I'll show you how to dice and then how to slice them the best. Let's see. Get a little bowl here. I like to peel apples. It's kind of like a weird specific way. You kind of want to start at the top and do like a circle around the top, and then a circle around the bottom. It's kind of just like you're like giving yourself a border to do the inside peeling, and then you're just going to sort of connect the two borders. I think this is sort of the fastest and most efficient way to peel an apple, and it gives you a little place. If you've ever cut yourself with one of these peelers, you know it's like an epic, terrible thing. So this is kind of also the safest way to do it, I would say. And then you're left with a perfectly peeled apple. So, little trick there. So, to slice our apples, I like to kind of hold the apple like this, keeping my hands out of the way so I don't cut my fingertips off. You can use the top of it as like a safe place to keep your fingers, and then just cut the ends off of your apples. So, all right, we're going to do 2 for slices and the rest for dices. So slicing apples, you can kind of just do a nice little, what do you call this, like a lever action. They don't have to be too thick. You don't want them too thick because they aren't going to cook nicely. If you do them too thin, they're kind of just going to shrivel up and disappear. So there's like a nice little, what is this, 1/8 of an inch? Sort of. Oh, 1/6 of an inch? I think that's an 1/8. It might be a 1/6. If you hit 1/4 of an inch, you've gone too far. So yeah, just quickly slice them up. Don't cut your fingers off. If you have a tiny bit of skin on there, it's fine. You could You could honestly leave the skin on if you really wanted to, but I find that apples sort of bake nicer and more consistently.
It's a great tip, because I said earlier, I like the apple skin on, but
Yeah.
it's different, right?
Yeah, for baking it's different. I think that apples tend to bake nicer without the skin on.
It's a good tip.
There's a lot of apples here. You may feel like this is a lot of apples for the amount of cake that we're making, but you really want the apples to like bake into the cake and kind of, it's going to give it all the flavor. As the apples bake, they break down and they add like like an apple juice sort of like essence to the cake, which is super delicious. It kind of gives it like a light apple flavor. It's not super like roasted apple-y. I don't know if that makes sense, but more like kind of like apple juice flavor than apple pie flavor. So for our dice, I like to slice the apples thicker, so I think this is about a 1/2 inch slice. You could do larger if you'd like to. Yeah, no, maybe we need a ruler around here. We have some debate about our apple slices. A little rough dice is fine, so I'm gonna just, after we cut them the long ways, I'm gonna cut them short ways. We have sort of like medium-sized apple cubes. Again, this is sort of like dealer's choice. If you want large chunks of apples in your cake, that's totally fine. I like them to be a little bit smaller so that there's more of them. And then you kind of get them dispersed through your cake more. So just gonna do that to all of our apples. There we go. We are going to toss our diced apples with our cinnamon sugar. So cinnamon sugar, we've got ours here. Just gonna mix these up in these cute little cups that we have, and then give it a toss.
Swirl?
A little swirl, you gotta swirl it.
So what's in there?
So cinnamon and sugar, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, and then tablespoon of cinnamon.
Okay.
So then we're just gonna pour it over nicely, and then we're gonna toss our apples with the cinnamon sugar. So like so, give it a little toss. So they're nice and evenly coated. All right, see, this is our guy that I said before. I cut a little too close to the core, we'll just pick it out.
Got too close to the core.
A little too close to the core. All right, there our apples are ready to go. So we're gonna put these aside, and later on we will mix them into the cake batter. Okay. All right, so now for the mixing part, we're going to start with our dry ingredients. So in the bowl, we're going to mix our all-purpose flour, or colloquially known as AP flour. If you ever see a recipe where it just says AP, that's what it's referring to for the most part. It's just all-purpose flour. Sugar. Okay. And then our baking powder and sea salt is in here as well. So those are all of our dry ingredients. A lot of recipes will tell you to sift dry ingredients, but you can kind of bypass that if you whisk your dry ingredients together first. If you do this, you will break up any sort of flour lumps or baking powder lumps that you might have. And then we're actually going to sort of create a little, not a well, but we're gonna mix our, little divots. We're gonna mix our wet ingredients in here. And in doing that, we're also going to avoid the dreaded lumps in our cake batter, which nobody wants. So first we'll go eggs. 4 eggs, right in the middle.
What's this technique you're doing, cracking the eggs? Talk about it.
Oh, okay, so this is kind of a weird thing. People always ask me about this. I like to crack eggs together. You think that both of them would break, but it's funny, only one breaks. So it's like a more efficient way of cracking eggs. You don't have to like smack it off the table or the side of the bowl. I feel like the side of the bowl method never works for me. You always end up breaking the egg on the side of the bowl, and then it gets everywhere, and then you've got... So for the last one, I do the table method, not the bowl method. But you just have to be careful, that's all. But side of the bowl, it's a pet peeve of mine. I really don't like cracking eggs off the side of the bowl. So together and then on the table, gently. All right, so the eggs are in the bowl. We're gonna add the orange juice. Orange and apples go really well together. And then our vanilla extract. So that's our cake batter essentially, and now we're going to just mix it together. So sort of starting in the middle of the bowl, you're just gonna like work the wet ingredients together until they're homogeneous, which means that they are mixed. That's just a fancy word for mixed. And then you're gonna slowly start working in the dry ingredients around the outside. This is kind of almost similar to like making pasta.
Yeah, a little bit.
Almost. But so in this way, we are avoiding adding too much dry to our wet ingredients at the same time, which is actually what causes the lumps. So by doing this, we're slowly mixing everything together, which gives everything a chance to marry together, and then the lumps just don't happen. So here we go, everything's starting to come together. Okay, almost there. Totally normal for it to sort of take a minute to do so. Just keep mixing, get a little elbow grease in there. Sticks to the spatula a little bit, or to the whisk. You can just give it a little, show it who's boss on the side of the bowl. And then if you look in the bowl, you see, lastly, we're going to, I'm sorry, I forgot the olive oil, but you can add that last. That is totally fine. We need a cup and a third, which, actually, I know that this is about a third of a cup, so I'm just going to eyeball it, but please don't eyeball baking recipes. Please don't do it. There's like, you can absolutely shoot from the hip with savory recipes, but any pastry recipe, you gotta follow the recipe, I promise you.
So in place of olive oil, can we use coconut oil or anything else?
You can totally sub out different oils. If you like avocado oil, if you like coconut oil, you can absolutely sub those in. If you are familiar with grapeseed oil as well, that's a good one. I love the flavor of olive oil personally, so that's kind of a go-to for us in the restaurant biz. As you mix the oil in, you'll see that the batter gets really shiny and pretty. Just want to make sure it's worked in all the way. You can do it like this if you want to add the oil last, or throw it in with the rest of your wet ingredients. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, so nice shiny batter.
What about like the addition of like vanilla beans or anything like that?
Yeah, if you prefer to use whole vanilla bean pods instead of vanilla extract, that's totally good to do, and also it has those pretty little specks. I prefer actually vanilla paste. Vanilla bean paste, if you see that in your grocery store, has a little bit more flavor than vanilla extract, and then you get the added bonus of the seeds. So that's my preference. But if you have vanilla bean pods at home, then that is absolutely a good way to go. So this is what our batter is going to look like when it's done. No lumps, which is really what we were going for. Nice and shiny. And then kind of like a slow, I always tell people to look for kind of like magma. Like you want it to be kind of the consistency of magma when you like pull a trough through it. So that's ready to go.
I mean, I grew up with magma.
You know, magma. So, all right. If you have a loaf pan at home, that's what I would suggest. We have to be resourceful at the restaurant sometimes. So this is actually what we call a third pan, but it's going to bake this apple cake into a loaf, which is really all we care about. So on the bottom of the pan, we're going to put in, I would say like 3 handfuls of apple dice, like so. And then we are going to put half of our batter in the pan. So you can eyeball this, it doesn't have to be super specific. So about half, like so. Okay. And then we are going to put in the rest of the apples. Yes, it's a lot. That's okay. That's what we want. As it bakes, they're going to break down like I was mentioning before, and they will sort of disperse throughout the batter. And then we're gonna top it off with the rest of our cake batter. So like so. And then the last thing you wanna do here is just kind of spread the batter out.
So because of the olive oil in here, we're not concerned about sticking?
So I'm sorry, I Pam sprayed this.
Got it.
I Pam sprayed the pan before. You do want to make sure you spray your pan, otherwise you're going to have a really hard time on your hands later. Also, I was informed that preheating the oven needs to be mentioned earlier in my recipes. So make sure your oven is preheated to 375. At the restaurant, I'm just used to ovens being on. So make sure your oven's preheated. Make sure you pan spray or cooking spray or butter your pans if you want to go the Chef Matt route. More butter is better. Just butter your pans. Okay, so that is that. And now we're going to shingle our apples on the top of the cake. So kind of arrange them nicely. If you want to go, you can do as many or as few of these on top as you want to. You can make pretty designs. I just like to shingle them. If you bake this cake if you happen to throw this in the oven and the apples sink into the batter, just throw more on top when it's about 3/4 of the way baked. And then they'll stay right on top. It depends on what temperature your oven is, but usually I don't have a problem.
What about additional toppings at this point?
If you wanted to throw on like streusel or like a crumble, you could do that. If you wanted to sprinkle like maple sugar or even more cinnamon sugar on top, now would be a good time.
Nuts? You
could absolutely put nuts on here. I would recommend walnuts or pecans.
Pecans or pecans?
So I'm from Vermont, so I happen to say pecans, but I am told that is incorrect. So pecans are the way to go. And yeah, so then you kind of have your beautiful apple cake and it's ready to go in the oven just about. Yeah, so after we throw this in the oven, when it comes out, let's see, this is what it should look like. Throw it in, and then a little TV magic here, guys. We have our apple cake. So this one has fresh apples on top, has the apples baked throughout. I topped this one with a little bit of brittle, so if you had any sort of like, you go with like Heath bar or something like that, it's kind of like a brittle that you could find at a grocery store, just sprinkle that on top instead. And then the fresh apples, and then our apple butter, which I'm actually going to just spoon over the top. So if you were to slice a piece of this, you would get a little bite of everything.
What's in the apple butter?
So the apple butter is apples. I used Honeycrisp, and then cinnamon sticks, star anise, a little bit of nutmeg, and vanilla bean. And then I like to use apple cider in place of water because I think that it's always best to just add more flavor rather than add water, which doesn't taste like anything. So, and maple syrup, and then you just let it cook down. And after the apples break down, you just want to either run it through we use a Robocoup, but any food processor will do. So it's kind of like chunky smooth, but not too chunky.
But it still has a shine to it. Still has that sheen.
Yeah, still has that shine. It's slightly more texture than applesauce, and it's slightly thicker than applesauce, and it is more flavorful. So this is sort of our preference here. And then yeah, just slice it and go. And then you have your breakfast, you have your dessert, you can have whatever you want. And that is the apple cake that we make here at Baker's Daughter.
All right, folks. So we had a great little 3-course menu today. We did the fall salad of radicchio, fennel, apples, dates, and blue cheese, and a sherry Dijon vinaigrette. We then made a duck confit tagliatelle pasta with Calabrian chilies, pecorino, a little bit of agrumato on top. And then Chef Asia made a beautiful spiced apple cake topped with a wonderful apple apple butter. So this was a lot of fun today. Thank you everybody for joining us. Remember, we do this every Thursday. You pick up your CSA box on Thursday from Baker's Daughter. We do this on Saturday with an online live cooking demo. We're gonna be doing this the entire month of December. Also, please be sure to check out Baker's Daughter Hanukkah packages, holiday Christmas packages, Chef Asia's Yule logs, holiday cookies, and then, like we talked about, dropping on this coming Wednesday, Gravitas to go. We're going to be doing a la carte format and a 3-course dinner format from Gravitas to go, kind of getting ready for the winter months, as we don't really know what to expect. So thank you everybody for all the support, and we look forward to seeing you at Gravitas and Baker's Daughter. So thank you.
Thank you.